Hey VC, it's Nico. I'm back again at you, and this time I would like to give a response to FlipsideCT Steve and his idea called Under the Radar, and the idea was to contribute with a video where you show albums by artists who have fallen under the radar, in order to share knowledge and give musical tips beyond your Hotel California by the Eagles or Beatles, Sgt. Pepper and Led Zeppelin 1, 2 and 3. So I thought it was a great idea. The vinyl community, one of the main points for me anyway, is to share music and discover music, and of course interacting with nice and knowledgeable people. But this is my go at albums under the radar. And speaking of under the radar, I received a record in the mail today. It's an obscure Norwegian band called Akasha, and they were out of the north of Norway. I think it's quite north of Finnsnes, all the way up in the north of Norway. This was recorded in a makeshift studio in a shelter in the basement of a hotel on a 4-track recorder, and released on a micro label called Bat Records. This is the original from 1976. And I've always been curious to listen to what this band sounds like. I noticed reissues around, but I was lucky, an original turned up for auction here in Norway, and I was the only bidder, so I got it for a quite nice price. And what can I say? It's crudely recorded. It sounds older than 1976, but it's that typical mid-70s prog rock with a lot of synthesizers and mellotron. But I think the sparse recording makes it sound the more interesting. I think if it had been given a slick production, it wouldn't be quite to my taste. But the songs are interesting, good musicians, and the arrangements are good. It doesn't sound quite like anything else. This is the front cover with the song listing and the credits, and this is the back. It should have been the front, according to me. And comes in a nice gatefold sleeve with the lyrics and some more credits. So I think this is online. Give it a chance if you're into that mid-70s keyboard slash synthesizer slash mellotron drenched progressive rock. You might like Akasha. Well, that was an album quite below the radar, far below the radar. But let me turn it down a bit. I didn't have to search my record collection for too long, because I have just pulled some records from my listening stack, the records I have on rotation these days, and I found quite a lot of under the radar albums. So I'd like to show and perhaps do some needle drops. I'm sure I will be getting a copyright pop on this video as well, but never mind, who cares? It's not the end of the world if the video gets taken down. One album I would like to feature, I haven't seen it being shown in the VC, but it's the debut album by the English proto-prog or psychedelic band East of Eden. And this is a wonderful, wonderful British psychedelic / progressive album from 1969 called Mercator Projected. I hope I pronounced that correct. And this you ought to hear if you like that sort of late era psychedelia combined with tinges of progressive rock. Quite an interesting band. They released a couple of records. The next one is called Snafu, and it's quite alright as well. And they released a couple of albums on the Harvest label, which I haven't heard. But this first one on Durham is, in my opinion, a masterpiece. So I'll give it a needle drop as I speak a little bit about it and show a couple of other records. I'm playing the first track off of side 2 called Bathers. And if you can hear it in the background, it sounds like there's Mellotron on here, but no, it's actually a violin. They had a violin player who also played flute and sax, and a second sax player. And if you don't like horns, this isn't typical horn arrangements. It works fabulously to this music. So it was a quintet, I believe. This first incarnation of East of Eden. They had a revolving lineup, mostly Dave Arbus on the violin, who was the constant member, and Dave Arbus you might know from the track Baba O'Reilly, I guess it was, on Who's Next. He plays the violin on that one. This is just a beautiful album. Mellow, interesting songs, good musicians, a nice balanced sound production, and the album is quite floating and cohesive in a good and strange way. I honestly don't understand why it hasn't got any more attention in the VC or elsewhere. If you wonder about this blue sticker which says LP4, this is the ancient price code system from Norway in the 70s. Let's drop the needle somewhere else, perhaps here. Atmospheric, melancholic, melodic. Just awesome in my opinion. So that's East of Eden, Mercator Projected. Do go and have a listen on that album. It's online. I think it's on Spotify and it's on on YouTube as well. So I guess I will get a copyright pop on most of these albums I will show here. Well, another artist which has gotten a bit of love in the VC, but I don't think I ever seen this album shown. Which way to show it? It's this one. And if you can read what's on the top there, Merryweather. This is Neil Merriweather's band and their debut album, I believe, from 1969. Oh, upside down. From 1969. And of course his Space Rangers and Kryptonite albums have been shown quite a lot in the VC, but this one from 1969 is an excellent psychedelic blues rock record. And Neil Merriweather at his best, according to me, of course, on the Capital Rainbow label. So that's Merriweather from 1969. It can be found quite cheap online on Discogs, for example, and I strongly recommend that one as well. Merriweather. Look for the toes. Well, what else do I have in my bag? By the way, I'm shooting from my girlfriend's apartment. She's out partying tonight and my brother's staying at my house. So I thought, well, I go to my girlfriend's apartment and have a nice quiet evening spinning records and perhaps shoot a video, which I'm doing right now. Next up we have a Belgian band. Now that's quite rare. From the 70s, and it's Genghis Khan and their only album, Well Cut. And this is another excellent but overlooked heavy progressive album from I believe 1971 or 70. Early 70s at least. And it's on the French Barclay label, which also put out Jimi Hendrix releases in France. And this is just awesome. If you can track down a copy, I believe it's reissued. You almost never find them in pristine condition. Mine is sort of VG Plus, but it plays okay. And I mean, Big Frisma, the guitar player, I'm not sure what it's called actually, but excellent guitar player, excellent group. I do believe the vocalist later entered some Eurovision Song Contests later in the 70s. But this one is great. So if you can track down Genghis Khan Well Cut, pounce on it. Quite a new acquaintance for me is this next album I will show. Perhaps some of you have heard about it, perhaps not. It's the band Julians Treatment. It's an English or British quintet, and they recorded only this album in 1970. This is the American version on Decca Records, which can be found for quite cheap. The European, the English and German and French version, I believe, was released on the Youngblood label, which is very collectible and expensive these days. So when a near mint US copy turned up, I couldn't resist it. And you can also check out Julian's Treatment on Spotify, I believe. So I guess I will get a copyright pop on that one as well. I found it to be the thumb rule that whenever an album is uploaded to Spotify, you can be sure that there is a copyright claim coming down on your video. I put on the title track. This was released as a double album in the UK, but all the songs have been crammed onto one LP for the US release. And it comes in this Unipack cover, but it has beautiful cover art. Just look at this. Wonderful. And this is wonderful, dreamy, melancholic psychedelia. Of course with elements of prog rock, but I'll put on this track. And well, just listen. Drenched in Hammond organ, female vocals, blistering guitar and drums and bass. Just wonderful stuff. Julians Treatment. A Time Before This. The title of the album. Just fantastic album. Well, Julian Savarin, as his name, Julian J. Savarin, he later quit the music scene and became a successful science fiction writer and have released a number of successful science fiction novels. So if you have heard the name Julian J. Savarin, well, that's the man who's on this one. This is his brainchild. He released one more album in 1973, I believe, with other musicians. Well, I'm running into 18 minutes already. Well, let me show just a couple of more albums. I think I'll split this up into two parts, perhaps. Another great psych album from the Netherlands this time is Group 1850 and their first album called Agimo's Trip to Mother Earth from 1968. And this is a wonderful, dreamy, psychedelic album with wonderful sound production. It has a gatefold sleeve here, and you might see there's a cutout here. Originally it had 3D glasses, because this picture here is kind of 3D lenticular. Of course, the 3D glasses are gone probably for a long time ago. This has also been reissued. This is an original on the Philips label, but wonderful, dreamy, cosmic psych from the Netherlands there. I really, really recommend this album. Group 1850. Agimo's Trip to Mother Earth. Just solid all the way throughout. Well, I guess I'll leave you with a bit of Julian's Treatment, and I'll be back showing a couple more albums in the near future. So here comes the title track, A Day Before This. Sorry, a time before this. Well, cheers. Have a nice Friday evening.